Hi, guys. Welcome to Stateside Street, the podcast where, well, today one American is talking about all things Corrie. And today I have Michael from Conversation Street. Thank you, Michael, for coming on the podcast.
No, no worries. Lovely to speak to you.
Oh my
Nice to do a
gosh.
bit of a meet up between Corrie podcasts, isn't it?
Yes, especially across the pond.
Oh, exactly. And we've got a Corrie and Emmerdale crossover coming up soon, haven't we? So why not a podcast crossover as well?
Exactly. Now all we need is for me and Shanika to come over to your set.
Yes.
That'd be fun. Okay, so your first question is, what made you get into soap podcasting?
I got into podcasting as a listener probably about, I don't, it was fairly early on. I'm trying to think when they first kind of really kicked off. I guess it was the early 2010s or just a bit before that, maybe. And I mostly listened to, and I still do, Nintendo podcasts because I'm a big Nintendo gamer. But I also back then did sometimes watch some TV podcasts as well. One that stands out to me, or one program that I couldn't get enough of back then was Lost. And I was really heavily into the lore and the theories and the questions and everything from Lost. And I just wanted to hear everybody's ideas about it and what they thought was going to
Lost is
happen
such
next.
a good show though, so that's like
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And so there were some Lost podcasts that I always listened to and I wrote into and stuff like that. And it was for a good few years before Conversation Street started that Gemma and I were saying to each other, "Oh, why aren't there any soap podcasts?" Because here in the UK, it's one of the biggest genres. It was getting
Hmm.
millions upon millions of viewers every week. Clearly, people like them, but there was nothing there in podcast space to where people could just tune in and listen to hear other like-minded fans talking about their favorite show. So we still were kind of talking about this for years, and eventually we just said, well, come on, let's do it then, because we've been mulling over the ideas. We didn't know how it worked. We didn't know anything about recording, about audio. We didn't know about uploading or publishing, or I wasn't on social media at all then, apart from maybe I think I was on Facebook, but I hadn't joined Twitter at that point. So it was all completely brand new. And so over the course of one summer, because I'm a teacher and I had my
Oh,
6 weeks off in the
same. I'm a
summer.
I'm a substitute teacher, so
Oh,
for
nice.
element for
Yeah, so
like younger kids.
I had my time off in the summer holidays, and we were driving back from a holiday in Cornwall one year, and we in 2012, and we just kind of put together the ideas for how it would work, and said, yeah, let's do it, let's try it out. So I think probably the following weekend was when we first gave it a go. And I'm trying to remember what the setup was. And even now we still don't have a really super technical high tech setup or anything like that. But I think back then it was maybe I had my iPhone out on the table and that was about it. And we just recorded into there. We sat at a table and talked and wrote a few notes in a notebook and then spent about half an hour talking about what had happened in Coronation Street that week. And that was it. And I remember putting the first one out, really nervous and quite excited as well about what would come of it. And I think I very naively, or both of us very naively thought, well, this is getting, I think it was like 8, 9 million views on TV at the moment, Coronation Street. Surely everyone's going to want to listen to this. Oh, we could get hundreds of thousands of people listening. But it didn't quite work out like that, as I'm sure you
Yeah.
found out as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
But the next day, even though the listens that we were getting were more in the double figures rather than the quadruple, quintuple figures. It was still exciting seeing them going up and having people thinking, oh, people have caught this. They listened to it somewhere. They've seen our links, and yeah, we just were happy to see it grow from there. Thankful to the Coronation Street blog as well because they were really instrumental in the early days of helping to promote the podcast. Glenda Young there, who runs that, said, "Oh yeah, we put it out on our blog," and yeah, it just kind of grew over time, really, and now we are where we are today, getting a lot more listens. We've got our YouTube channel, we've got a Patreon, we've got all sorts. So
You've interviewed, I
it's
don't know how many actors from the show.
yes, yeah. Well, that was all very exciting. And when we started, we didn't really have an idea about where we wanted it to go.
Mhm.
Like I said, our first episode was half an hour long versus the what, 3.5, 4 hours that we do now every week, plus a bonus podcast as well. And we just thought, well, we'll talk about Coronation Street and see what happens.
If
Um,
people like
and
it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
yeah, we kind of thought, well, it'd be nice if we could interview some of the actors or people behind the scenes, but we never knew whether we could or not, or how it would even happen. But it all that started about 2, 3 years into the podcast, so it certainly wasn't instantaneous. But we got a reply on Twitter from Sally Ann Matthews from something that we'd said about Jenny, and it became apparent through her tweet that she'd listened to the podcast as well. And that was so exciting, thinking, oh, it's not just other fans that are listening to the show, some of the actors are as well. And we were like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? And then, yeah, just over time, we were replying to other messages from Sal, and we DM'd a few times on Twitter as well. And then I think eventually we just said, would you like to come on for a chat? And she was like, yeah, yeah, of course. And it all kind of went on from there, really. That, as I say, that was maybe, I can't remember whether it was 2 or 3 years into the podcast that happened. And then over the next couple of years, we were able to get a small handful of other cast members to come on. But it wasn't until I think the fifth anniversary of the podcast in 2017 that we thought, oh, fifth anniversary, let's do something special this summer. Let's see if we can get a load of interviews together. And we kind of made a concerted effort to try and get hold of some cast members and some past cast members as well. So I think that was probably the summer that Charlie Lawson, who played Jim McDonald, came on. Kev Kennedy, who played Curly, and yeah, it just kind of grew, and we got a bit bolder and more confident about contacting people or contacting agents or contacting Coronation Street, who've been really, really helpful, the publicity department there in helping to put us in touch with some people. And yeah, so it's lovely, and it's a really kind of unique and special thing to do on the podcast. Even though we have had loads of people on so far, it's really exciting to talk to everybody individually, and everyone's different, and it's still every time go, oh, I can't believe we're doing this.
Mhm.
And I know that that's an aspect of the podcast that a lot of the listeners really enjoy as well, because you get to see, on TV you can see interviews that are 5 minutes or something maybe, but on the podcast, when it's a lot longer, and you can have
Yeah.
the guests on for 30, 40 minutes, hour. I think one of our longest was over 2 hours. And yeah, you just get a really lovely insight into, what makes them tick
Yeah.
and all the behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, yeah, love it.
That's like what I love. It's like getting to talk to the actors and like asking them like, what was your favorite blooper? Like, I don't know if you watched our episode with Sydney, like she was telling us about how her favorite blooper is whenever her and Kate stole Preston Peddle's van and Sydney completely wiped out in the back of the van. It's so like it's always fun to hear that side of it. And it's like you said, it's every single time you get someone new on or you get more listeners, it's
Mm.
like I can't believe we're doing this, but
Yeah, I think
like
with the podcast interviews by the fans as well, you know what sort of questions to ask that they won't necessarily be asked in some of the mainstream press.
Mhm.
Because I mean, the people who run the Inside Soap magazine and Metro and Radio Times, they do know their stuff, of course. But I think from a longer podcast, one that's just dedicated to Coronation Street, you can really kind of hone in on the sort of things that
Like the
fans want to
nuances
know,
and
have
of their
wanted to
characters
know.
and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, well, you kind of just like kind of answered this, but what was it about Corey that made you decide, let's just make a podcast on this?
Apart from the fact that it's always been something that's been a real passion and a bit of a nerdy obsession of mine, I suppose I could say. It helps that it's a program that just keeps on going and going and going. So we knew we'd never be short of new content to talk
Mhm.
about. We had, what was it then? 4 days a week, I think back then it was on, and it would just, yeah, we didn't see that there was going to be any end in sight in the near future for Coronation Street. So we thought, well, this is going to keep us going. But then also it was the fact that there was so much, 50 years at that point of backstory to look into
Mhm.
as well. I mean, there's been very few other programs in the history of television across the world that have been on for as long as
Yeah.
Coronation Street. And yeah, some people have their obsessions with Marvel and the multiverse there, and
Yeah.
then there's all those little ways that can spiral off in many directions. And for me and for Gemma, it was Coronation Street and really getting to know everything about the world of Weatherfield and all the characters that they've been, and it's given us the opportunity to find out things about the show that we'd never even considered before.
Yeah.
We knew that it started in 1960, and I'd probably seen the first episode, and that was about it. But now we've seen a load of the other old ones from the 60s, and we've gained this huge new love and appreciation of the real vintage Coronation
Yeah.
Street. And yeah, it's just there's just always something to talk about.
I remember watching an episode of The Royal on
Hmm.
BritBox, and on that episode, one of the episodes, they were watching the first ever episode of Corrie.
Mm,
And it was like,
really?
oh my gosh, that's insane. What was your first memory of watching Corrie?
I I know that I was watching it in the mid 90s. It was my parents that had it on in the house, and I expect that's an experience that lots of people have also shared. It's been parents or grandparents that watched it and they picked it up. I do know that when I it would sometimes be on in the background, so I'd either be sitting on the sofa with them and partly knowing what was going on, or partly not, or I might have been sitting at the dining room table doing my homework for school, and I heard bits that were going on. But I definitely remember when Samir was in it, who was one of Deirdre's husbands, who ended up
Mm.
dying when on his way to donate a kidney to Tracy. But then I think I must have seen bits before then because I remember being quite upset when Samir died, and so I must have been watching it to build up with that this impression of him that I didn't want him to go. It's so fuzzy. I know some people will be able to say the first episode I watched was the tram crash or the sinkhole
Yeah.
or whatever, and I can't say that at all. But I'm gonna say I always say 1994, which I think was round about when Samir was in it, and that's some of my earliest memories. And then from spotty watching here and there, by the time we reached kind of, I guess, 96, 97, it was, I can't miss an episode of it. And then you had the stories like Deirdre in prison. And I do remember when when Bet Gilroy left, or Bet Lynch, and that was 95, I think. I remember when Reg Holdsworth left, and I think that was 1995. And I remember because I'd taken newspaper cuttings about the fact that they were leaving, and I had them blue tacked onto my bedroom wall as well.
You were like,
Not the usual things that teenage boys have on their bedroom wall, I have to say, but I had a newspaper page about Reg Holdsworth leaving and Bet leaving. I remember when Raquel left, and Curly and Raquel were definitely some of my favorite characters back in the day. And I was really, really a big fan of their relationship. And I don't think there was such thing as shipping back in the mid 90s, but it was, I guess, the closest that there was to it. And I was all for them. And it's kind of funny now watching back some of those episodes and thinking, oh, they really weren't suited to each other at all. And that was really tragic what happened. But as a young boy, I was just like, oh, there's this little geeky boy, this geeky man here, and he's got this lovely girlfriend, and oh, they're going to be happy together. And I absolutely adored them. And I remember twice in the 90s, I did the Granada Studios tour. which is when we could go behind the scenes of all the Granada shows, and you could walk up Coronation Street and you could see. I think they had props out. There was a big green screen for a different show, and it was all about TV production and how that worked. But the main thing that people went for, I guess, was getting to be able to walk down Coronation Street. And I'm pretty sure the first time that my parents took me there, I it didn't mean anything to me. So that must have been early 90s. And I remember walking down this road and my parents getting, oh, look at this, let's look through the letterboxes. I can't believe we're actually here. And I'm like, no, this doesn't mean anything to me. But then the second time that I went, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I had that exact same feeling as they did the first time. And I was like, I want to see everything. Oh, that's where Curly lives. Oh, that's where Jim and Liz live. What can I buy in the gift shop? And I remember getting a little key ring with a picture of Raquel on that I had on my keys for school for a few years.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I've got very happy early memories of Coronation Street. Another one. I'm just making myself sound really, really geeky and a bit sad, really. But I remember when I started secondary school, I started high school, and one of the ways that I tried to make friends with children in this new school, because I didn't really know anybody in this new school, and I said to them, "Do you like Coronation Street?" And again, I don't think that's particularly the cool sort of thing to
They
ask
probably were
for like
like,
teenagers.
huh?
But I found one person, my friend Mark, and he said, "Yes, I watched Coronation Street as well." And I was like, "Oh yes, we have got somebody to talk to about Coronation Street," and that was September 1995, so I was definitely watching it then. And yeah, I still talk to Mark now, 30 years later. Not so much about
Oh,
Coronation Street. I think he's dropped off that, but I do remember that was it was a big part of my life then, and it hasn't really dropped off really.
yeah. I mean, everyone has those shows that they are like that with, and I
Yeah,
mean, it's still your thing today. I mean,
yeah, I know
look at
it.
you now.
I know. Like, if I could go
Take
back in
that,
time
Mark.
and tell
I got to talk
myself
to
that this
Jenny.
would be what's
I
happening.
got to talk to Jenny Bradley. Look at that.
Yeah. Although, of course, back then I didn't have a clue who Jenny Bradley was. I remember when Sally Ann Matthews came back into the show. Was it 2014? I can never remember whether it was 14 or 15.
It
And
was 14
yeah,
because that's
I would have
whenever
said 14.
that's whenever Jenny was with Johnny.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember her coming in and thinking, I know this is a big character, but I've never really seen much of her. I maybe saw little bits of her on old classic episodes on one of the satellite channels that used to show them. But to me, she was just, as it could have been anybody coming back. And
Yeah.
I had no idea back then that over the course of the next few months, she'd then go on to being one of my favorite ever Coronation Street characters and an actress who I've got a whole lot of respect for. And yeah, it's been really lovely to be able to, grow close to her offline as well over the last decade as well.
So I bet whenever Jenny left, you were quite sad.
Yeah, well, I think it was. I told you earlier about the first time that Sal contacted us on social media, and that was towards the end of her first little mini comeback because she comes back. She's going out with Kevin for a little bit, and then she kidnaps Kevin's son Jack, dangles him over a balcony, and then gets carted off to she gets taken away for a bit of a mental health treatment, shall we say? And that was it was around that time that we put out a tweet and we were talking about her doing this crazy stunt and what a brilliant performance she's giving. And that's when she got in touch with us. But then it was not long after that at all that she was then off our screens for another 7 months or so. Though, of course, then I didn't realize she was going to come back at the beginning of the following
Yeah.
year. And I was like, oh no, just this character that I've so grown to love. And she's only here for 6 months. Well, little did I know then that it was going to be another decade or so that we
Hmm.
that we get of her.
Oh no, I love Sally, love her character. The way that they did like Jenny's exit, I was watching that episode, I was like, wait, it's today? It's today? Whatever.
I think a lot of people had that experience. So we knew that she was going then. I mean, so we knew that Sally Ann was leaving for quite a few months before it got it got announced to the wider public, and it was it was Sal. She it came onto our podcast at the end to talk to me about it. So, but she was very much like, I don't want it to be a big thing. I just want it to be a quite quiet exit. I don't want to broadcast it everywhere. But we still kind of assumed that it would leak. And so we knew about it from kind of springtime, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting for this story to come out that Sal was leaving. And then she filmed
Yeah.
her final episodes, and we went up to Manchester to catch her as she was coming out from filming her final scenes. And we were kind of saying to each other, it's still not broke yet, has it? When are people going to find out that you're leaving? And then I think it was maybe a month or so after that that
Yeah.
then she broke the news online, and yeah, but it was still not announced when her final episode was going to be.
Which is
Again,
interesting
because
because most cast exits get leaked like that. And so, like,
yeah, I mean, there's
I
got
was
to be a
surprised that
mole in
hers didn't.
Coronation Street. Things are leaking. It's not so much. It kind of comes and goes, but it's very rare for a character to make a surprise exit in Coronation Street. It usually comes out, doesn't it? And it usually does come out quite a while before. So even who else has left recently? I mean,
Um,
there was Eileen, Craig
Addie,
this year.
Addie
Who?
left. Addie.
Yes, yeah, of course. And a lot of those seem like it was we had well, all of the viewers had a long time to get used to the idea that they were leaving. But yeah, not so much for Jenny for lots of people. But on the day that the episode aired, we knew it would be her last episode because we'd been planning this interview with Sally Ann. So we were like, "When's your last episode then?" And we'd also knew when it was filmed as well at the
Yeah.
beginning of July. And so we were just waiting to see what the reaction online would be because it was quick, wasn't it? But that's how lots of Corrie exits are now.
Yeah.
Sometimes for good, sometimes not so good. But Sal wanted a quiet exit. She didn't want to be killed off. She didn't want a
Yeah.
big long running storyline. She wanted to kind of slip away. And from what she's told me, she was very happy with how it went. But I totally get that some viewers felt a little bit shortchanged by it because they were taken a bit by surprise, I suppose.
Yeah. I was like, hold on. Wait. Wait. Hold on. And then I
Well, it's
texted
because
Tanika.
at the beginning of the episode, weren't even any plans from the character to leave. She'd been a bit down in the dumps about, oh, I'm just stuck behind the counter at the cabin. But even usually, like when Yasmin left earlier this year, that was quick. But even
It was
then, it
quick.
was 2 or 3 episodes of,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to London to work for a charity. But this was
London.
getting up one
I
morning.
had
I'm
to.
just living my normal life. By the end of the episode, I'm jetting off to Tenerife or wherever it was.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was the final one of the final scenes, wasn't it, where she's walking towards the camera. She puts the sign down next to the Rovers, her Jennifer Connor, a license to sell intoxicating liquors, and then she walks towards the camera, and then I go, "Oh, is that it then?"
Yeah.
She didn't
And
even get many goodbyes with many people, did she?
yeah, I think she says something like, this was Jenny Connor's place, but wherever I go next will be Jenny Bradley's.
Oh yeah, I love that. I really, really
It
love
was
that
so good.
because I'd got used to her being Jenny Connor, but
Yeah.
Jenny Bradley is just one of these Corrie names that sticks no matter how many times. I mean, she didn't change it many times, but if you think of Gail, for example, she's known as Gail Platt, Gail Platt, Gail Platt, and she's had God knows how many husbands over the year, but she's still Gail Platt to lots of people. And I think the same with Jenny. She's Jenny Bradley to lots of people. So the fact that there was a bit of a tip of the hat to that in the last episode, and she was credited as Jenny Bradley as well.
Yeah.
I do quite
It
like that
came
as a
full
bit of a
circle.
classic callback. Yeah,
It was
yeah. But
I mean, that's
I
kind of
don't get the
like
impression we're going to find out any more about what Jenny's happening up to next. I think the book is probably pretty closed on that now. But
I'd
yeah,
love to just get like someone get like Ree to get like a postcard from her. I'd love that.
yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, I think as I said to Sal when I was chatting with her that Rita for the past 25 years or more has been going off to Cartmel in the Lake District to see Mavis every time that she needed a bit of a break away from the show, and now she can go and see Jenny, so she's got someone else
Yeah.
to visit. A bit like Steve, he's currently visiting Andy in Spain, hasn't he? Which he's been doing for the past 20 years or so. It's nice to have somewhere to
Yeah.
go and visit foreign relatives and
Yeah.
friends. Well, I wish I had someone that I could just go and stay with for a couple of weeks to have a bit
No,
of a
right?
break.
No,
Alas,
right?
I don't know anybody in there that I can just go to in the beach somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, so who is okay, your favorite character, old and new?
Um, as much as I go on about Jenny, I think she's up there. She's probably there in my top 10. I don't know. I will often go towards Bet and Hilda and Haley often as some of my top
Haley.
three. Haley Haley was just pure warmth and goodness and niceness. And as much as I do love a classic Corrie villain, I just loved, yeah, the purity and good-heartedness of Haley, and that was another story that was fairly early on in my formative years of Coronation Street that I saw. So it was it 97, 98? I can't remember when Haley first came into it, and that was one of the first Corrie love stories that I saw blossoming with her and Roy. So it was really lovely being able to see the whole of her story grow over time and seeing her as a character grow over time from a very timid um, person to somebody with a lot more confidence and a lot more love in her. Sort of the love of Roy and the whole community respected her, and yeah, she was just a real force for good. And I think soaps need that because so often in soap you got to have a dark secret or you got to have a bit of a manipulative side to try and stay interesting, and Haley didn't have that, and I really enjoyed that.
And everyone loved her.
Yeah, everybody loved her, and Julia Hesmond-Hals is an absolute gem of an actress. I mean, I've seen her in a few things that she's done since, and she's just absolutely phenomenal. We've met her once at a book signing a few years ago, and she's just as lovely as you'd expect. But then, yeah, from the classic days, as I say, it's usually the likes of Bet and Hilda that I go to. And I don't know whether that sounds a little bit cliche, but it's the truth. Hilda was hilarious, and I loved her relationship with Stan and Eddie, the three of them together. Just we do love an underdog, and the Ogdens were the ultimate underdog of those early to mid Coronation Street years, and seeing them struggle, but still Hilda would try and put a smile on things and doing her singing and she was a real a real inspiration for keep your chin up, I suppose. It's just hilarious with their malapropisms, the mural on a wall, the ducks were from her wall as well, of course, which then became part of the Conversation Street logo. And Jean Alexander again, a real national treasure, and a real sad loss when she died 10 or so years ago. And then with Bet, I think. I think with Bet, I always had a bit of a wrong impression of her because I'd seen bits of early Coronation Street when I first started watching, and of course, I said when she was still around just about when I first started watching the program. But in my head, Bet was just just a tarty barmaid, with the low cut tops and the beehive, and that's about all there was to her. But being able to see a lot more of her story, you get to see how much of a how deep a character she was and how troubled and flawed and also like Haley, very big-hearted as well. Just how strong she was taking over the Rovers. I love the brass. I love the lid on a smile quote, which really epitomizes her. Julie Goodyear, proper legend. That she just could, the character could do no wrong in my eyes. I think modern day. I mean, I suppose we can count Jenny among that. Of course, she was in the 80s, but she's done a whole lot more
Yeah.
in modern Corrie. But during the time since Gemma and I started the podcast, the one other character over anybody that we really got into was Pat Phelan. We just absolutely adored him as a
Getting to
bad.
talk to Jan McVeary
Yeah,
about that was great.
yeah, I bet he was very good with the fans, just like Sal was, and he couldn't do enough to help support us, and we would chat for for a time, and sometimes he'd just kind of phone us up and say, "How you doing? I listened to the podcast. Let me do a bit of feedback on it." So that was all helpful. But yeah, the character of Pat, I just loved how, again, very deep and developed his character was. He wasn't just a mustache twirling panto villain, but he was in some ways a good guy, and he had to make the decision about, how far down the path of darkness do I go? How far can I get away with? Do I? It was like when he had Andy held kidnap in the basement. He said, "Well, look, do I kill you now? Do I let you go? I don't know what to do." It felt like he had a bit of a conscience there that he was really really wrestling with, and eventually just went down the darker and darker and darker paths. But again, as a performer, absolutely mesmerizing was Conor McIntyre. Loved his accent as well. And yeah, it was he came in a time of the show where lots of people were criticizing Coronation Street for being quite dark and depressing, and it's been a bit too like EastEnders, and isn't what Coronation Street was about. It was when Kate Oates was the producer, but Gemma and I absolutely loved it. That's probably the period when we've been doing the podcast that we were most gripped by it, and I can't wait for the next episode. I can't wait to see what's going to happen to Pat next. What's he going to get up to next? How's he going to wriggle out of it next? Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And Richard Hillman's obviously the other baddie that he gets compared to, and we still flip-flop about who we enjoy the most. But to be able to create a character this recently for Coronation Street who can rival in terms of villainy one of Corrie's other most notorious bad guys, Richard Hillman. I mean, they had something special there, I thought.
Okay, so we've talked about favorite. How about a character that kind of rubbed you the wrong way? Who's your least favorite?
Um, Gosh, I mean, doing the podcast, there's always you try and see the good in lots of characters if you can, because it's no fun watching a program and talking about a show if there's characters there that you just don't get on with. And yet there's definitely weeks, and I'm sure you're the same, of watching Coronation Street where you think, oh, that really didn't hit right. The mix of characters wasn't right for me. The stories didn't seem to go anywhere. But I do try and look on the bright side as best I can. I mean, at the moment, I would probably say Kit is a character that I just can't quite get on with. And he's a fairly rare case in that even some characters that I think, oh, they're a bit dull sometimes. Other times I think, oh yeah, they're great. I love them in this today. And Kit for me is just one. And it's no disrespect to the actor who plays him. He rubs me up the wrong way just because he's not the sort of person that I can identify with in any way. Maybe he's just yeah, he's always out for himself. I don't like how shady he is, how dodgy he is. I don't think. I think with Coronation Street villains, and he is a bit of a villain, I do like them to have a little bit more about it, which he hasn't. I don't find that he feels quite like a closed book, and not in a way that's like, oh, what's his mystery? I can't wait to find out. I don't feel that even after these, what, 2, 3 years that he's been in the show, that I really know him. Yeah, and I can't think of that many Kit scenes where I go, oh, that was a classic moment. I love it. So yeah, probably him at the moment. But then, over the years, all characters have had their ups and downs. Like
Yeah.
sometimes people will say, like, "Oh, Chesney, I'm not so much a fan of Chesney at the moment. He's a little bit boring sometimes." And then other times he's great. When he was a little boy, Chesney was wonderful, and I do like the character of Gemma, and I've really kind of fought for them sometimes over the year when I've seen some Coronation Street fans saying, "Oh, let's get rid of Gemma and Chesney." I'm like, no, no, they've got a part in Coronation Street. Um, I'm trying to, yeah, I think. I think in my earlier days of Coronation Street watching, there were more characters that I absolutely loved. So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I could kind of reel off boom, 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 boom characters that were like 10 out of 10s for me. And I think these days there aren't so many 10 out of 10s. There's more kind of, oh yeah, I quite like those. Yeah, they're good, but I'm not absolutely like, oh, I must see what they're doing next. But there's never really a time when there's lots of characters that I just like, no, 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 not interested at all. It's often I find the stories that they get given that might change my mind about them. So, at the moment, I'm not really into the Asher storyline whatsoever, but I love Asher. And Dev is one of my favourites at the moment. I think that Jimmy Harkishin is amazing, and the character of Dev is so funny. But
For once,
what?
I will agree with you on that. If you've
Yeah.
never heard the
Oh, thanks.
podcast, I Dev is one character that is my
But
least favorite only because he doesn't think about what he says sometimes, and it's just like not the moment, dude. It's not the time.
I just kind of find that kind of endearing when he says the wrong thing. It's like, oh, come on, Dev, you idiot. But yeah, that story with your family that I really, really like is just leaving me a bit cold at the moment. So yeah, it's more the stories that don't quite hook me than the characters, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, so who is your favorite couple? Current favorite couple?
Um, I don't. I just having to kind of run through a few in my head. I mean, I really do like Sally and Tim together. Um, that's a fairly easy answer, and I think lots of people have really got on board with them. And the thing, one of the things that I like about Sally and Tim is that they've lasted the course. They've been together for 10 years or so, and it feels like these days in Coronation Street, so many couples get together for a few years and then they split up when they've run out of ideas for them. Like, with Sarah Louise and Adam, they were married and then they didn't really show it for a bit and then they split up. So I like the fact that Sally and Tim have got, there for the long haul. And I like how kind of normal and relatable they are, and Sally with her kind of prissy, snobbish posho ways, even though actually she's hardly middle class herself, and then Tim being the classic Corrie feckless male that the wife just kind of rolls their eyes at. So I do appreciate when they come on screen, which is not as much as it should be, I think.
They don't get enough screen time
They
together.
really, really don't. And one thing I would say about modern Coronation Street, as it is at the moment, is that some of the longer term characters do get sidelined a bit too much in favor of the brand new characters. And I think that Corrie should be making more use of the long timers. But I get that there's a bit of a budget thing going on, and maybe it's to do with that. I don't know. See, I really enjoyed Ed and Aggie when they were together as well, and I think the long-term feeling, even though we hadn't seen them on screen for all that long, I really bought the fact that they had been married for decades, and that
You
was
said
that was
Ed and
really
Aggie,
important
and
for me.
could you see me racking my brain? I forgot who Ed was. He hasn't
Ed,
been
I'm
on
sure he's a guy. Well,
he hasn't been on
understandable
screen
if you've forgotten about Ed
in
because I don't
God
know what
knows
they're
how
doing
long.
with him at the moment. I do like Lisa and Carla. That's been kind of an interesting one to watch. I like I mean Jenny and Johnny. I really love together. Who else is together? It feels like
David and
there's
Shona.
yes, yes, I do love David and Shona. David has been another one for me who I've seen grow over the years, and that's another reason why I love soap so much, and another reason that it's great to do a podcast about a soap is because you can see these characters grow up before your eyes over the years. So Jack's been playing David since 2000, I think, when he was a little scamp, and he was so brilliant. He's one of Corrie's best child actors by far, and he hilarious, and he's still got that little twinkle in his eye as well. And Shona, I think, is a brilliant match for him. When Julie Goulding joined the show, she was one of these characters that immediately I thought, Yeah, she's a keeper. She's brilliant. She's got a real spark about her. She's got something that just is really engaging. And putting these two together, they've got a real fun kind of banter with each other, and they kind of make fun of each other and they insult each other, but they do love each other as well at the heart of it. And yeah, I think that was I'm very, very pleased that they've not split them up. And I remember, was it last Christmas? I'm losing track of time, or the Christmas before, when Shona and Kit slept together, and I was like, no, no, don't
Well,
let
don't.
this be the
That
end
was
of
last
those
Christmas.
guys.
Don't remind me of that,
That was
please.
last Christmas, was it? Yeah, I was like, no, I can't be having, I can't be dealing with that. But yeah, they are absolutely brilliant as a couple. And what I think in some of the earlier years of the podcast, we saw more of the Platts. The Platts were more of a central hub for the show, and not so much these days. But when we do get the stories with David and Shona together, which we're getting at the moment with the pregnancy, and I know that's going to be developing off in the next few weeks a little bit more. I think that you've got two real quality actors there, and Corrie's very lucky to have them, and I hope they stay forever. Yeah.
I love David and Shona, and I love Lisa and Carla, and I can't wait to see where Lisa and Carla's story goes right now with the whole
Yeah, I agree. I
wife
agree.
coming back from the dead.
Yeah, interesting move that one. I'm still kind of up and down on whether I think that was a good idea or not, really. Like I was saying earlier to you, I think it was before we started recording. I'm enjoying the chaos that Becky is bringing, because there's no way that Carla and Lisa are going to be up over this. Coronation Street knows they've got a really, really popular couple here.
I can see
Um,
maybe a temporary breakup, but not a full on breakup.
No, they're getting married. They are 100% getting married. Unless, either Ali or Vicky decide to leave the show, which I can't see happening. I think that this is going to be the first gay wedding on Coronation Street, the first, girl gay wedding on
Successful
Coronation Street.
gay
Success.
wedding.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I think it'd be it's just inconceivable to me that that's not going to happen, which is why I'm enjoying the chaos that Becky is bringing, and I'm enjoying how she's winding Carla up. And we've seen a bit more in the last couple of weeks of the Carla rediscovering some of that fire that maybe she's not had so much of in recent years, as she's just totally wound up by Becky. But yeah, that's all going to go great in the end. And
I
yeah,
love it.
it's lovely that Corrie has got a couple that some fans are really, really passionate about, because Corrie needs to keep people talking about their show. If people weren't talking about it, then they're in trouble. And there's been certainly a lot of talk online about Carla and Lisa over the past
Yeah.
year. So
Yeah.
I expect that they're pretty pleased that they came up with that idea.
Okay, so if you could put two characters in a couple that you think would be good together, who would it be?
Oh gosh,
I'm putting you on the spot, Michael. Come on.
I know that's totally putting me on the spot. So is this am I thinking of characters that are currently single, or doesn't that really matter?
Eh, doesn't matter. This might cause some controversy. Let's see.
Ah, see, I don't. Oh, I feel like it's really tricky. I know that for some people, they're always thinking about that kind of thing, and they've got some prepared answers ready to go. But sometimes I'm just much more of a, let's see what happens. I mean, I feel like I'd like Glenda probably to find happiness, but does she need a man to be happy? It might work, but then I wouldn't know who to put her with, really, because I don't
People
know
want
who
Glinda
could
to be
quite
with
handle
Ryan.
her. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know.
I
I don't know
can't
whether
see
that's
it.
much of a fit for me. I think that Glenda is so kind of big and in your
Yeah.
face. She's either going to have to find somebody that matches that, or somebody that is going to be happily subservient under her and
Yeah.
just kind of let her. Oh, I wish I had a better answer to this, but I don't know whether I do. Um, I don't know. I'd have to. I'd have to keep thinking. If we can, let's talk about something else. I mean, have you got any ideas? And that might spark me off.
Hmm.
Putting you back
I've
on the
heard
spot again.
I've heard people say Abby
Yeah.
and Shona,
No,
but you can't split up Shona and David.
no, no. They wouldn't be a match. I don't think so. I don't think so. Um,
Well, we need to pair Abby up with someone that's not Carl.
I know, and I don't think that going back to Kevin is necessarily the best idea for her as well, because that'd show a bit of weakness for Kev. I mean, would she be good with Kit? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
No.
I suppose he's a bit young for her. It's really true.
Yeah.
When I get questions about who, like immediately I like forget all names of people that are in the show, even though there's a cast of what 80, 90 or so at the moment. We're like Coronation, what? I don't know. I can't think. We'll come back to it if anything pops
Come
into
back
my
to it.
head.
Okay.
This is why I couldn't be on the storyline and team. But even they must come to their meetings with notes.
But speaking of Kit, I think that they've done a good. They're making him bearable by putting him with Sarah. Like, I'm actually tolerating him with Sarah.
He's all
They're
right,
kind of,
but it's just not particularly it's still not particularly inspiring to me. And the fact that they were
yeah.
talking in yesterday's episode that the other characters were having a sweepstake about how long they'd stick together. I was thinking, yeah, I'm kind of surprised as well in some ways that they're
They
together
should
after this
make
time.
that like a, they should make
Yeah.
that like a fan thing.
But
Let us all
I
give our input.
I don't really feel with Sarah and Kit that there's this amazing chemistry there or passion or
Oh, no,
anything
me
really. It's
neither,
just
but
like
he's
they're
bearable right
together
now. He's
because they
tolerable.
needed somebody. Yeah, they're together because they needed somebody for Sarah to team up, to pair up with. I can't think whether I've ever like really been happy with the partners that Sarah's been put with over the years because I wasn't really a fan of her and Adam. I know that Sarah and Gary were a popular match, but I didn't particularly get that. I don't know if there's anybody else about that I would say is definitely a good match for Sarah at the moment.
Mm.
Don't know, don't know.
Okay, well, we'll come back to it. But
Hmm.
this is our final question before we go back to the other one. Do you have any advice for anyone that is thinking of starting a soap podcast?
Um, you've got to be able to commit a lot of time to it. And I really enjoy doing Conversation Street, but I'm not going to lie and say, oh yeah, you just kind of turn up on a Friday night, talk about Coronation Street, and that's it. It's a massive, massive project that Gemma and I both do lots of work behind the scenes. I'm sure you know about this as
Mm-hmm.
well. Um, and you've got to have a real love for all aspects of the show. Because if you were I mean, I know that you can have specialist subcategories of podcasts because there's podcasts that are mostly focused on spa, let's say at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But and maybe if you're just wanting to dip your toes into the world of podcasting, maybe that's not a bad way to go because there's only so long that you can have a podcast about a couple or a story because couples of stories come and go over the years. But if you're kind of thinking, I want to, properly do this. I want this to go on for forever and ever and ever, or for years and years and years. Then you've really got to need to commit because for a soap, there's no time off unless you decide, oh, I'm going to do seasons of this and I'm going to have a season off. Soaps don't stop. Any podcast might. Their audience might come and go if there's too many gaps. Real life gets in the way sometimes,
Yeah.
of course it does. But for podcasts, there needs to be some kind of consistency. So you need to be able to commit a certain time every week for doing it. Um, don't expect if you're starting a podcast, don't expect to hit the ground running and get actors knocking on your door to come and do interviews, and you're going to be deluged with thousands of listeners straight away. It's slow going,
Yeah.
and you've got to be able to put the word out there, kind of make links with other podcasts or fan sites or forums or Facebook groups or whatever to get your name out there, and to just give it a go and try and do what works for you. Don't
Find your
Don't
flow.
try and copy another podcast and say, well, they do this, so that's going to work for us. See what the dynamic of the hosts is. See what works well for you. Um, don't yeah, maybe don't overcommit and think and have these huge plans straight away. Just kind of let it build and see where it goes.
Yeah, I would say find your flow in
Mm,
in your episodes. Definitely find your
yeah.
flow. See how long you want your episodes to be. You can have different sections, stuff like that.
Mm,
And then,
yeah. 'Cause with ours, it's, sometimes we say that the conversation street has just kind of taken on a mind of its own. And we certainly, when we first started this back in 2012, didn't imagine that we'd be doing, 3+ hours on a Friday night and then another hour and a half or so midway through the week, which is what it's turned into. And, maybe it would be, in some ways, it'd be better if we had to rein it in a little
oh, that
bit.
means
But,
that me and Shanika should post we recorded a Swarla. It was only dedicated to Swarla, and it was the proposal because we knew we were going to have a lot to talk about. We
yeah.
rambled for so long, and she's like, I don't know if we should post this. This has no structure. I'm like, but it's funny content because we were,
Yeah. Yeah, just post it out there. I mean, we don't do very much at all in the way of editing our podcasts, and we know lots of podcasts do. And we probably could cut it down if we needed to, but then we might be cutting out some funny bits or bits that wouldn't make sense. And that we commit lots and lots of time to this podcast now, and I think that however many hours it'd take to go and to put it through the editing suite, I couldn't even
yeah.
imagine.
Hopefully, you've had time to think about.
No, I still don't know. I still don't know.
Michael!
I don't. I know. I needed proper preparation for this. Um,
Listen, I
I
gave you a rundown of the questions beforehand.
he didn't even say that one.
I know. But
I
you
haven't. I
can't
haven't
say
got
that I
enough.
didn't give you a rundown of the questions.
Sometimes, sometimes you just never know because I don't think I'd have ever put George and Christina together, and I'm absolutely
But I
loving them.
love them. They are
Yeah,
so good.
they're really, really good. They are good.
I know one couple that I would probably split, and
Who's that?
I said it, and now I can't think of their names. Oh, Nick and Toya.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still not used to them and together, and I really did enjoy Leanne and Nick together, and I get that for the drama of, oh, it's the sister stealing her sister's man, then it's all very tantalizing, and
Yeah.
but they've not really done a whole lot together, Nick and Toya,
No.
and he's fairly dull, but in a comedic way, and she's very kind of straight-laced as well, and they don't particularly for me make that exciting a couple. I absolutely
Yeah.
love Toya. But when he got down on one knee to her the other week, I was like, "No, Toya, don't say yes."
And she didn't.
No, she didn't. She didn't. But I don't know who I would put Toya with necessarily.
Hmm.
I don't know. See, I just wanted to bring back Spider because I love Toya and Spider
Oh
together.
my gosh. Yeah.
That's another couple that for me has was from my early years of Coronation Street when they first got together in 1998. And sometimes some of the couples and pairings that get presented to you when you're in the first flashes of watching a new TV show, it's like, oh, that's a keeper. And I don't think it's just rose tinted glasses or nostalgia, but it's probably is a little bit. But when he came back a few years ago, I was like, oh yeah, Toya and Spider back together again, just after Imran's died as well. But alas, he only lasted a year before he was back off to London or wherever.
Yeah. I could see Toya and Ryan.
I was maybe thinking that, possibly. I don't know whether he comes across as a bit too childish for her. He's grown up a little bit since the old acid attack, but
Yeah. We'll ask the listeners. We'll ask the listeners.
I think we're going to have to. I'm sorry if that I
Yeah.
that
No,
I can't give any definitive
not yet.
answer. I'd have to give it a proper think.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
to the listeners, who do you think, if you could put two characters in a couple, who do you think would look cute together? Side question.
Yeah,
Who would you put
he'd have
Toya
good
with?
chemistry. He'd have good chemistry. He'd make a good story, and who would? what's important to me, like I said earlier, is who's got the staying power, who would be able to keep revisiting on screen, because so often they'll put a couple together and then have a big story about them getting together, and then they put them in a cupboard for a year, and it's like, oh no,
Hmm.
they're having difficulties now, and now they've split up. And oh, what was the point of that then? So it needs to be characters that are going to stay the distance and
Yeah.
be genuine feeling and for a long term for me, I think.
Here's a character that we haven't seen in a while. Daniel. Who would we put Daniel with? I thought they were going to put Daniel and Dee Dee.
Daniel and Dee. Yeah, it was looking towards that way, wasn't it? They had
Yeah.
a, so, because
Now
sometimes when
now Dee Dee's
characters
with
share a
Ollie.
scene together, it's like they're never together. They must be eyeing them up for a couple.
Yeah.
I don't, do you think that? Mate, I guess the age difference is again a bit too much, but Daniel and Toya are both relatively intellectuals, aren't they?
You saw where I was going with it. You saw
Oh,
where I
is
was
that
going
where
with
you
it.
were? Maybe. See, I really enjoyed Daniel and Daisy together, and that they were a bit
Yeah.
chalk and cheese in some ways, weren't they? Um, But yeah, I do like Daniel actually. So
Yeah.
maybe,
And I
maybe,
loved
maybe.
like Daisy with little Birdie. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. I just think that sometimes characters that you think are going to work together actually don't work out, and sometimes, like I said, with George and Christina, you never would have predicted it, and it's absolute
No,
telly gold. So
it is. And
yeah.
like that's how I'm so glad that Eva's back now because Eva and Ben is a couple that I love.
I do as well. I think that they've got a really good match there, and Aaron McCusker, I've been very very impressed with him so far, and I've always loved Eva anyway, for a long time. Yeah, they could be a good. They're definitely one to watch, aren't they? Well, it's been
But
lovely. Very nice talking
yes.
to you.
Yes. Well, this has been Stateside Street. I'm Amelia, and you all have been fabulous. See you guys.